So, attuning to the rhythms of the sun and moon is really what I want to talk about today, and just how our bodies are in constant communication with the natural world around us. We're always moving through these intricate sacred cycles, and they're often unfolding without our conscious awareness of them. The circadian rhythm, most of us know about the circadian rhythm. It's a little bit more well known. I mean, it's hard not to know about it. It's daylight and nighttime. It's really hard to get away from, and it runs our entire community. It's a 24-hour biological clock, right? And it's spurred by the sun. And circa means day, around a day. Circa means around, and dian means a day. So circadian translates into around a day. So it's just a cycle that is on a daily schedule. We wake up, we go to work, we eat breakfast, all these things that happen around a day, but it influences so much our hormones, it influences, our cortisol levels, our melatonin levels, our digestive enzymes in biology. It's really, really good for our digestion to eat at the same time every day because our body primes. Right? It starts to build those digestive enzymes because it's preparing for the food that we give it. But we all know the circadian rhythm, and I'm blessed enough to live a life where I don't have to set an alarm in the morning because I get up really early, but also because the natural world just wakes me up here. I always sleep with an open door and open windows, and just by the sounds of the birds or the bugs, I know exactly what time it is. Before 5 a.m., it's always bugs. After 5 a.m., the birds start to chirp. And depending on how loud the birds are, I know exactly what time it is. And when we live in accordance with these rhythms and we start to get to know them, and we don't block ourselves off from nature, the natural world is always speaking to us, and we used to live by these cycles. And now they're kind of just happening around us without our conscious awareness of them. But our society and our culture is set up on this circadian rhythm. And so if we look at how our circadian rhythm works, it really affects our cortisol and melatonin. So that's what wakes us up in the morning and what puts us to sleep at night. So the amount of light that we get exposed to is going to get us up and at 'em. As we get that first sunlight coming through our window, our cortisol starts to spike. And then throughout the day, our melatonin starts to rise. So we have this peak of cortisol around 6 a.m., right? That's 6 a.m., 7 a.m. is about when it peaks. And that's when we have the most energy, have the most cortisol running through us. And part of the reason why I really don't recommend people to have coffee first thing when they wake up in the morning is because that's when your cortisol is the highest, right? And coffee is going to increase your cortisol levels. And then we have this crash. But you have this dance of cortisol and melatonin happening based on where the sun is at in the sky. What's interesting about this circadian rhythm is that it matches perfectly with the male hormonal cycle. Male hormones operate on a 24-hour cycle. And so they wake up in the morning and their testosterone is the highest. And then throughout the day, it starts to go downwards. And just like the circadian rhythm, it spikes at 6 a.m. Right? So you have this 6 a.m. spike and then this descend through the day. And this is how the whole structure of our world is set up. And it's just in accordance with the male body, right? It's totally symbiotic with the male body. And so this way of living and being in the world is really, it works. And of course, like everything's responding to the circadian rhythm. The birds start to chirp, flowers open, their blooms and to look at the sun, and then they close at nighttime. And so everything's operating on this rhythm, but there's another rhythm that doesn't get, so spoken about, and that's the infradian rhythm. So infra means beyond, and so infradian just means beyond a day. So there's lots of cycles happening that are beyond a day. Bears hibernate at an infradian rhythm. Birds migrate. Snakes shed their skin. Uh, there's lots of things happening, but our cycle, our 28-day cycle roughly, is happening on an infradian rhythm, kind of like the moon. So their infradian is like the moon. It waxes and wanes, and it influences our sleep, our energy, our mood, our thoughts. And our bodies are aligned with these monthly cycles. And as you can see, it's a lot different than the circadian rhythm and the male hormonal cycle. It's over a 28-day period. We have our menstrual phase where our hormones are really low. And then as we go through the follicular phase, estrogen starts to rise, it peaks, and then progesterone takes over. So we have these 28-day cycle where we're ebbing and flowing. And we're aligning with the waxing and waning of the moon. So Bianca and I, we're bleeding right now, and it's also a new moon. So we're in tune with that lunar rhythm, and my body comes in and out with the lunar rhythm, but I notice it really affects my energy. And throughout the day, we almost always know what time it is, right? We're always checking our watches. We always have our phones on hand. The sun is always telling us where we're at. How often do you know where the moon is at in the sky? Like, it's just not a part of our culture. It's not something you talk about. You talk about the weather with people, but you don't have casual conversations with your neighbor about where the moon is at in the sky. Unless it's full, which is kind of funny because I like the comparison of, when we're ovulating, everyone tends to notice, and when the moon is full, everyone tends to notice. But the other parts of your cycle kind of go unnoticed. And we have both of these rhythms happening simultaneously within our body, right? And I track my own cycle, and this is what my cycle looks like. This is what my rhythm is. And every month it looks like this. And this is my temperature. This is my temperature over the course of a month. And this is what my body does. This is how my body changes. And I just really like observing it. I take my temperature every morning and then I put it into a graph at the end of every month. And I just like to see, because it's always giving me information, right? Our body is always signaling to us. It's always showing us patterns. And really, at the end of the day, our bodies were never meant to follow a straight line. We're meant to ebb and flow and rise and fall with the pulse of our hormones. And that's what makes us vibrant and wild and beautiful and inconsistent. That's the power of our cyclical nature, right? That's the power of being a woman. But what I really want to talk about is this crazy fact that I heard recently, which was that 80% of the population with autoimmune conditions is women. And when we're balancing both these rhythms simultaneously, but we've completely forgotten about one, right? We always, how you live your life in daytime hours versus how you live your life in nighttime hours is completely different, right? You're not doing what you would be doing during the day at nighttime. You're not working out, you're not going to work, you're not eating, you're sleeping. How much does your life change when you're ovulating versus when you're menstruating? Not that much. Like, really, not that much. Maybe a little bit here and there. And I've been really trying to work on having my cycle really dictate my life instead of making my cycle work for my life. It comes first, but really at the end of the day, it's just our system isn't set up for it. And when we're balancing both these simultaneously, but we're not paying any attention to our infradian rhythm, I notice every time I write infradian, there's a little swiggly red line under it because the dictionaries don't notice it. And it's like every single time, this is just a rhythm that operates in nature, it's so natural and half of the population has it. And it's not even reflected as a real word. Every single time I write it, it's marked as an error. And so I think it's really, really interesting and really reflective of the fact that 80% of people in the modern day with autoimmune conditions are women. Autoimmune conditions are rising and they affect men and women because we're just coming out of balance with the natural world. We're coming out of balance in general, but a woman's physiology is a lot more delicate than men's. In traditional Chinese medicine, they say that healing a woman is 10 times harder than a man. And that's because our reproductive system is biologically expensive. And I like to say that running this system is a joy and a gift, but it also takes a really big toll on us, right? It's really energetically expensive. And so when we're not in a good state of health or we're not really balanced, it's usually the first thing that comes out of balance. And it's really reflective that women have come out of balance because so many of these conditions are affecting women. And because our culture doesn't have any regard for this rhythm, our bodies literally start to attack themselves because they feel so unsafe, right, in the system that we've set up. And this is no individual woman's fault. When you develop an illness or an imbalance or metabolic dysfunction or chronic illness, it's not a reflection of you doing something wrong. It's a reflection of our broken culture and the society that we were born into. It's so much bigger than us as an individual. It's part of our group consciousness. But what do we do about it? Right? And in Japan, women get 1 day off a month they get a paid day off for their bleed.
Emily,
Yeah.
can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
I just listen. Did you get this information from Medicine Stories, the podcast?
I know the woman that spoke on that podcast, and I've heard her speak quite a few times.
Right, yeah, because I was just listening to this episode and it's like a lot of the same terms. So interesting. Okay, great.
But yeah, I mean, no one's gonna do it for us. And it's amazing that in Japan that's happening and that's even just recognized in their culture. But we need to do everything that we can to hold ourselves softly. We need to tend to her, we need to move with her instead of against her, and we need to take more care and more attention, put more energy into protecting our infradian rhythm because when you start tending to this cycle and come back into harmony with nature, everything in your life will start to balance, truly. Everything. Everything will just find its own rhythm, because you're reconnecting with that wisdom within your body. And part of the reason why I have a practice where I connect to my womb. It's just coming back to the wisdom of the body and learning how to hear her whispers, learning how to hear her rhythms. She speaks in pulses. She speaks in cycles. She speaks in textures, and learning just how to listen to the wisdom that's held within her and really just set your life up to honor her. Has really been what I've been focusing on. And, I don't have everything worked out, but I have got that worked out. And it was from a place of necessity. I was really, really struggling with my bleeds. And I actually had amenorrhea where I stopped bleeding for 9 months completely. And it was my body saying, I'm not safe anymore. You've created an environment that doesn't feel safe. And that really pushed me to learn the physiology of my body, to learn how to work with her instead of against her. I'm curious how all that lands for you guys and if that's information that you knew. I mean, I had never even heard of my infradian rhythm until a few years ago. It's not even something that was even on my awareness. No one teaches this. No one teaches us how to be in relationship with our body. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been coming up a lot for me lately. Like I said, I think I said in the comment of the one of the polls of yeah, when you have obligations, you have to attend to them. And how, especially, yeah, living and working on a farm, it's how to find that spot where you can honor yourself, but you still need to attend to what needs to be done, and
Yeah.
it's hard to find that sometimes
For
and be
sure.
like expected to be going at the same pace that you all like as if it's consistent. But they're pretty good at understanding here, but maybe in other workplaces just like not having that awareness that you are like this, and if you're not like that 5 days out of the month, why?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
and it's just not common knowledge, and we would feel uncomfortable even talking to anyone about it, right? Going to your boss and saying, "Hey, I can't work today." And for me, like when I've worked, and there's been a few places where I've worked and I've made my own schedule, and I will work longer hours when I'm ovulating, and then I'll take time off on my bleed. Right? Like everything will get done, right? There is enough of me to get everything done, but how I show up changes, right? And like I like this quote that, nature never rushes, yet everything gets done
Yeah.
because everything gets done, the leaves fall when they fall, the flowers bloom when they bloom. You can't force it. And I feel like we're put into these structures that make us force ourselves to do things when we don't want to do things. And that even furthers the disconnection we have between our body.
Mhm.
Every time our body says, no, don't make me, and we still do it. We break those lines of connection. We break that trust between ourselves and our body. And really, like, it's learning how to come back into relationship with her. As I do this, womb connecting, I'll ask, like, what can I do for you today? How can I show up for you today? And she'll start to speak to me and tell me what she needs, and I need to act on that, right? Because if I don't, if she reaches out and she speaks and I hold back or I override her, that just fosters more disconnection. And it's really hard to find that line where you have to show up in the world. You got to work, you got to make a living, you got to pay the rent, you got to pay the bills. Like shit got to get done. But at the end of the day, and what I had to learn the hard way was that the most important thing that I have is my health. At the end of the day, it is the most fucking important thing that I have. And when we constantly disregard our body, we spin
Mhm.
ourselves even further away from health. And
Mhm.
so sometimes it has to reach a breaking point for you to actually start to listen. Um,
Mhm.
But I mean, just asking. I mean, when I was at Forest Gardens with you guys, I asked Nick. No, I told him. I was like, my bleed time has become really, really special and sacred to me, and I can't work when I'm bleeding. I'll make sure everything gets done on the farm, and that's the beauty of farming is that, nature also works in these cycles,
Mhm.
right? She also doesn't show up the same every single day. But it's tough. It's not easy. And even like, I make my own when you're bleeding and you still got to go out and do shit, but there's ways that you can mitigate, right? And like any season that's upcoming, you prepare for it. So I often go like, is there anything I can do now because I know my bleed is coming? Is there anything I can do to support her? No, and there are lots of ways, I can run all of my errands. I can get everything done so I don't have to leave the house. And I mean, this week I'm bleeding and a friend invited me. She was running yoga meditation ecstatic dance and it sounded beautiful, but I was like, I don't want to be in a room full of people dancing while I'm bleeding. That doesn't feel really aligned for me. And you have to sometimes just make sacrifices.
Mhm.
But your body really, really listens. When you make those choices for her, you get rewarded. Mhm. Every
That's
single time.
Yeah, thank you so much for that wisdom, Emily. Yeah, I had a client today, and she's got Crohn's disease,
Hmm.
and she just got that sweetness, you know. like so sweet. And I've seen that pattern a lot with like people that got autoimmune disease. It's like the boundaries just not there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the difference between yourself and the other is just so thin, and she's like afraid of like she's so afraid of like virus and throwing up, and she's
Mm-hmm.
convinced that she's weak. And like your presentation just like I feel like pinpoint on like the culture, like the pressure and like the conditioning, like that's the disease, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not her, right? It's just
Uh-huh.
like we've gone like so far. There's like so many women
Mm-hmm.
suffering from that. And God, thank you we're waking up, but like it's really a culture thing, I feel. Yeah. It's really it's really humbling, but it's like the medicine's just there, right? It's just
Mm-hmm.
connecting to your body, to the cycles, to like the wisdom of a womb. And I was, uh, yeah, listening to you, and like, there's so much wisdom in our bleed. It's like yeah, it's like there's so many. It's like the grandmother here. They say that uh, you have to be in silence, right? You have to be quiet because the grandmother's whispering.
Mm-hmm.
That's her
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about. It's like
Yeah.
where the magic, like where's the recalibration is. It's like when you're bleeding, that's like the the time to listen to her.
Yeah. Uh-huh. It's where the veil is thin, right? Between you and your spirit, right? And if you bring a lot of noise, you can't hear,
Uh-huh.
right? And so it's like I feel so blessed this week that I was bleeding and Matt's away, so I have the house to myself. Right?
Mm.
And just like the quiet and the peace, and I can free bleed and not impact anybody, you know? Like I I've been really sitting with this topic of convenience. And really sitting with like, oh, my body's not always convenient. You know, and like we live in such a convenience culture, right? Where we have expectations on how we're gonna be. And my friend has been talking to me about this ecstatic dance yoga meditation forever, right? And I was like, yes, of course I'm gonna be there. And then it's like, oh, my bleed's here. I can't come. Sorry. Inconvenient. You know, or, I notice the way that I really have to advocate for myself. And my prompt for our session today was, what was one thing you did for her this week, this month, today? And I have one, which was I threw out my Diva cup today, which felt like a really, really big deal for me, to be honest. Like, and I'll explain why. So I've been wearing a Diva cup since I was 15 years old, pretty much, like on and off. But when I was 15, I went on a really long canoe trip and we had to like bring all of our garbage with us. So my canoe trip leader gave me a Diva cup to use, and I've been using it ever since. And I love it because I can offer my blood back to the land. I can connect with my blood. I can see my blood. I can experience it. You know, it brings me more in tune with my body. But for the last year, I've been really noticing how having that suction and having that energetic block in my womb space just did not align. You know, and every time I put it in, I almost felt her kind of rejecting it. You know, it creates this suction feeling. We don't actually allow our blood to leave our body, which feels really energetically important, to actually have the blood be expelled by our body. Um, and I threw my Diva cup. And so I've been kind of using other things, and I use sea sponges and I free bleed a lot. But this week I free bled the whole week. And I always like had my Diva cup just in case. You know, I was like, in case I need to be out all day or in case I'm going somewhere and I want to wear I want to wear something or whatever it was. I've always had it there. And today I just said, I'm not using you anymore because my womb space is rejecting you. And that felt, and I noticed it was like a convenience part of me. I'm like, oh, but it's so convenient. It doesn't make a mess. It's really easy. All these things, convenience. And it's like, oh, no, my body says no, and my body's being inconvenient, and I'm gonna listen. Today I'm gonna listen. And that felt really important and powerful. And also, I'll share one more story, which was that I had a copper IUD when I was 21 years old, and my doctor didn't tell me that I couldn't use a Diva cup. And I actually dislodged my IUD a few months. I was like maybe a month after I got it in with my Diva cup. I like positioned it, and then I had to go get it surgically removed, and I never was on birth control again. So this is like, I was that was, and so I kind of was like saying goodbye to my Diva cup today, and I was like, and thank you. Because you were the catalyst that got me off birth control because that experience was so traumatic. That
Mm.
experience was so traumatic. And sometimes you have to go through those traumas to learn, right? Sometimes you have to go to those places to really learn the lessons. And I hope that, my future daughters don't have to because I did. And, getting off birth control was my catalyst into womb work. And so I'm grateful for my Diva cup, but I had to say goodbye. And I feel really, really happy about that. And just like my body is just so, I can feel my womb thanking me because she did not want it in there anymore.
I
That's
hope.
that's my story of what I did today for her. Um, but I do want to go back to what you said, Sarah, just about, the energetics, and that there's always the energetics of like the autoimmune diseases. And I heard today, or maybe it was a few days ago, one of my teachers was talking about how estrogen is a giving hormone. So when we're really high in estrogen, we tend to give ourselves away a lot, right? We overgive and we overshare, and we have so much abundance that we want to just give and share and love. And sometimes when estrogen comes out of imbalance, it's because we give too much. We don't have those boundaries. There's an excess. And I think that it's always, illnesses are always energetic and emotional before they come into the physical body. And our hormones are always responding. Every cell in our body is responding to our behavior. So if we're giving too much, if we don't have boundaries, then we see that manifest in our bodies, right? Always first. And the energetic right now, in the world of women is like, go get him, be competitive, you know, rise to the top of the ladder. You can do everything. You can be the mother, you can be the CEO, and our bodies are physically responding to it. There's such a rise in PCOS and endometriosis, which are testosterone dominant illnesses. Right? And our behavior, we're acting more masculine and our hormones are responding. We're creating more masculine hormones, right? And it's just a reflection of the culture and the behavior that we're engaging in. I think it's just really important to just, and I have masculine tendencies too. And I have to like watch them and see how my body responds. But I know that my masculine energy was there to protect me. And so I love it, but I'm safe now. Mm. I'm curious if there's anything you guys did this week or this month or today. Um,
Mm.
to live more in alignment with your infradian rhythm. If that's something on your radar, if that's something you're here to do to learn more about of how to, because we're not taught this.
Yeah. I have the privilege of being of like making my own schedule.
Hmm.
So I take more clients when I'm ovulating
Yeah.
and try to like reduce the amount of clients I have when I bleed, but like I'm not like on clock, you know. Sometimes I go 28 and then 29 and then 30. So I do my best, but like there's like this wheel on my fridge and there's like the seasons and like where I'm at in my cycle.
Yeah.
And it was a gift from a friend and I freaking love it because my partner knows where I am.
Hmm.
And it also like keep me in tune of like, okay, that's where I'm at right now. And
Yeah.
I feel like it's like a everyday checking, you know,
Yeah.
what's my wheel? I'm like, okay, I'm in my spring, summer, okay.
Yeah, even just that, it feels so small, but it's so significant. Like I started writing when I'm ovulating and when I'm bleeding, like in the middle of my calendar, right? It's in the middle of my kitchen. We have guests coming over. Like everybody knows when I'm bleeding. But it's like it's like it's such a big part of my life, you know? It governs my entire life and I bring everyone into it, right? And just normalize it. And if this is how we actually create change,
Mm,
right? We start to talk about it. We bring men into it, into the conversation, right?
mm, mhm,
Yeah. So I love that. It's so simple and it's on my calendar. It's on my fridge, you know, it's there. It becomes common knowledge instead of something that we hide, something that we have to keep secret.
yeah, yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
It's like I'm gonna yeah, just add something. Like
Yeah.
starting this practice and like the practice of like keeping my blood, giving it back to the earth. Like my blood is just like sitting on the toilet for like all the time that I'm in my period, and I'm like, I feel so good about that. Like
Uh-huh.
I felt like so much. Like there was so many like layers of conditioning at first, like layers of like shame, and I had like my own story, the birth control and all this
You're
stuff.
welcome to share if you want to, just so you know.
Yeah, I don't want to take all this space. Okay. So I started my birth control. I think I was like 13.
Hmm.
So like my body wasn't even like developed. Like I even like my puberty wasn't done yet.
Yeah.
And at the age of like I think 20, 21, 22, I had like just this urge of like, okay, this needs to stop. Like I don't know, there was something off and I stopped my pill and like my my life changed. It's like I was living like in some kind of illusion and I felt like I was waking up from like a 10-year sleep. That's what it
Hmm.
felt. Like my intuition started to come back. Like I was going out with a guy at that time and I'm like I don't love this man at all. Like even
Uh-huh.
my taste in music, everything changed and I was like so fascinated with like what's happening. And I did so many research and like discovering that like it was a common theme like with women stuff in birth control, but it was like such a the beginning of like a beautiful journey of like coming back.
Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah. And I think I didn't have my period for like 2 years. Like
After you
seriously.
got off birth control?
Sorry?
After you got off birth control or when?
Yeah. Yeah. Like acne, big time. Like liver, like serious liver stuff.
Yeah.
And I think after 2 years, like I started to have my first period, and then like it went really irregular. I think it took me like 4 years for like to get like my circle back.
Hmm.
And when I had it back, I was just so fucking proud of leaving my blood onto the toilet. It's the loop, but yeah, and there's no more shame. Like
Hmm.
not even like a doubt. Like I I just love it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I w didn't bleed for 9 months, the first time I bled again, I just wept tears of joy. Like such intense tears of joy and just so happy and so proud of myself. And like it was just such a signal from my body, that it's like, okay, we're safe again.
Mm.
Or we feel safe again. And really like my teaching from that was like how do I create a level of safety around me for my body at all time, and how do I weave that into my practice and make sure that she's taken care of.
Mm.
um, but yeah, I mean, the have leaving blood around, like I cried tears of joy every time I saw blood. Like for like 6 months after that, I was just so happy. And I say that I've really been enjoying being on my bleed here alone because I could just have jars of my blood in every bathroom in the house. And it feels really good to just allow my body to express itself in that way. Like I
Mm.
can do it when Matt's here and like we have our own bathroom, so it's okay. I have my own bathroom where I do my stuff, but like I don't want to put it in anyone's face either, you know? It's pretty fucking personal. But it feels really good to just come back into relationship with it.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
So you said you threw out your diva cup, but you have the jars. So I'm curious,
Yeah.
like, I know my friend Amber was talking about like being so in tune that she would know when blood would come out and she'd go to the
Hmm.
bathroom. Is that what you do?
Yeah, that's what I do.
Oh.
If I usually like go and sit down on the toilet to pee and then hold the jar there and the
Right.
blood
Yeah.
comes out in the jar.
Mhm.
And then I have a couple sea sponges.
Right.
And so I'll let this, if I have to go out, I sometimes use organic cotton pads, but I don't really like them. I really like giving my blood back.
Mm.
So if I'm home, I use a jar, and if I'm out, I use a sponge. And I let the
Hmm.
sponge collect the blood, and then I rinse the sponge off in the water.
Okay.
Hmm. But I'm
Hmm.
finding, I mean, also like I'm really happy to give my urine also back to the garden. Like it's full of nitrogen and like it's actually a really good
Hmm.
fertilizer. And so
Hmm.
sometimes I just pee in a jar and my blood comes out with my pee and then it goes back
Yeah.
to the land. And
Yeah. That's how it goes.
that's
Yeah.
just how it goes.
That's how she goes. Yeah.
How do you do it, Sarah?
I have a diva cup right now. I didn't I didn't pass it. It's
Yeah.
it's really coming into my awareness,
Yeah.
and it's like in Chinese medicine, there's like I don't remember what's the name of that channel, but it's they say that like during her menses years, like there's energy from like her heart that goes down to her
Yeah.
womb, right? And it goes down, right? Like and like the energy just go down there, right? And I can see that like the diva cup could like interrupt the
Interrupt the flow, the channel.
yeah,
Mhm.
Uh,
but I just fucking love to see my blood, right?
Okay, this
Mm.
is it. I've been sitting with this for a few
Yeah.
years now, being like, okay,
Hmm.
my body doesn't want the Diva Cup, but I really like using the
Hmm.
Diva Cup. I really just like the experience of it, like seeing how
Yeah.
much I feel, getting so
Uh-huh.
much information. It's so much intel on my blood and my body, and
Yeah.
I love to see, the texture. I like to see the color and like all of it's just all information. And so I love the Diva Cup. And so I've been sitting on the fence forever about it.
Yeah. I like the
Yeah.
sponge though idea.
The sponge works. It's a little bit, it's not as clean as the Diva Cup because the Diva Cup's silicone and you just dump it out, right?
Yeah.
It's just very straightforward. With the sponge, you gotta like rinse it out. But I'm okay with touching my own fluids. I really am. I'm really okay with touching my own fluids. What I've been doing today is I have a little like cotton, organic cotton flannel, And I've been sitting at my desk and this one's new, but I've been sitting at my desk and I just put it under me. And I just like bleed onto it. And then I have a bucket outside and I just rinse it off in the bucket. And that's kind of
Mhm.
been working. It doesn't have as much information. I really like looking at the consistency of my blood.
Mhm.
I feel like that gives me a lot of information because sometimes it's stagnant, sometimes it's really vibrant, and I just feel like I get so much, yeah, just information. But it was a big day today throwing out my Diva Cup. Thank you. Thank you for being here to like let me go through the process and
Mhm.
share. And I'm curious if I will fall back on it or like get another Diva Cup or listen and
Mhm.
just notice how my body
Mhm.
responds. But I noticed actually like when I first started using a Diva Cup, it was a little uncomfortable. But then my body just got used to it. And the last time I put it in, it actually hurt. And my body was like, no, we're done with this.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same way. I transitioned to just like the period undies, like maybe
Mhm.
a year ago. And it's been, wow, just so nice to not have anything in
Mm.
there at
In there.
all. But
Hmm.
again, I miss seeing everything. Or when I rinse them out in the shower and I'm like, whoa, look at all that blood. That's exciting. It just comes out. But it's not the same. Yeah. But it's amazing how much they hold. Like it's whoa, technology. It's like there's nothing there. And then I put it in the shower and like step on it to see all the blood come out. I'm like, whoa.
See, you're still getting lots of information.
I guess so, but it's yeah, it's diluted with the water, like you're saying with the
Yeah.
sponge, and it's not quite the same. But yeah, I
Mm.
felt similarly. I just like hurt like whenever I would use the Diva cup the last few
Mhm.
times. But I still have it, just in case.
Yeah, I mean, I still had it.
Yeah.
I had it for the last few years, and I was like, no, today we're saying bye.
Mm. Mhm.
Yeah, but I also like, I'm like, but how about if I have to fly and I'm bleeding and like these things and all these kinds of things? And it's like, no, if I'm living in tune with my cycle, I will not schedule a flight on the day that I'm bleeding. You know?
Have you
Like,
tried the period undies though? Because they're awesome. I cannot advocate enough. They're so
I
clean.
I use like organic cotton pads, reusable pads.
Yeah.
But I've never used the undies.
The
They're
undies
great.
are way
They're
better.
so good. Like
Yeah.
they have the pad part like that goes all the way to like the top of the like pubic bone. So it's like so
Mm-hmm.
clean. And the ones that I have are bamboo and they're amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll look into it now that I'm transitioning.
Mhm.
Like 4.5 years for me, and honestly, I don't think
Mm,
I should go back.
yeah, wow.
From period
Yeah.
undies?
The period undies and free bleeding, that's all I can do. My
Mm-hmm.
body just one day was finally like, we're rejecting this tampon. And I hadn't tried a Diva cup at that point. I was like, I don't feel that that's necessarily the next step of this journey. I think we just need to go to nothing.
It
Mm,
was super interesting with the Diva Cup too. There was all this like kind of marketing about being environmentally friendly and like,
Mm-hmm.
saving the earth, with like because your period products are, you know, contributing to climate change and all of these things. And now I'm reading stuff about like heavy metals in Diva Cups and stuff like that in the silicone and like just
Well, like, are we even ever like safe as women? Because at the same time, like, as I'm advocating for the period panties, then you
yeah.
enter like the PFA forever chemicals, or
Uh-huh.
alternately every single brand of organic tampons and pads they've tested do contain traces of lead and other heavy metals. So it's
Uh-huh.
like
It's
I'm
it's
pretty
hard.
sure
It's a
stand
fucking
in the
hard.
stream for 7 days might be the healthiest option left.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean that's kind of why I landed on sea sponges because I was like, this is just harvested from the sea.
Mhm.
There is not any shit in it, there's no chemicals in it, and my body responds really well to it. It feels good. Um, I
Out of
really do like
curiosity, are you like able to rinse? You have to rinse it with, I assume, like bottled, or like, are you meant to rinse it with tap?
I mean, I rinse it
Like,
with
assuming your tap is potable, but
yeah, exactly. I mean, I've never had an issue. What I do is I have a jar of water that I can fit my hand into next to my toilet, and then every time I have to go to the bathroom, I just take the sponge out and dip it in the water and like clean it off and put it back in. Um, and it's worked really well. It just felt like the best option out of all the not great options that are out there. And I feel like free bleeding has been my favorite so far, and because I work from home most of the time, I just can pee in the garden. And like a lot of my blood comes out when I pee. And that works really well. But yeah, it's a hard thing to navigate. It feels like there's always something not quite right.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. We should be off for like all our bleeding time in a red tent with like dresses and like sit on the earth. Just free
Yeah.
bleed.
Yeah. Yeah, and when I was, reading about women and why, like in the olden days, why women didn't work on their bleeds, it was also because like women, when they tended to the home and raised children, it was like there was never any days off, right? Women worked 365 days a year, and so the men in the community gave women their bleed off. And that was like their time to rest and rejuvenate and pour into themselves. And I kind of feel that, and like how I've got my life set up right now is that I cook and I love to cook, and I cook every meal except when I'm bleeding, my partner cooks for me. And I love the way that that orchestrates in my life, because as soon as I'm done bleeding, I'm so excited to come back into the kitchen. And it's not this thing that feels like a chore that I have to do. It feels like this thing that I'm excited to do for those 3 weeks out of the month. I just really love kind of orchestrating my entire life around it, so that my life feels different when I'm bleeding. I'm not just going about my day to day. Um, and it feels a lot more like a ceremony. And again, it was like, hey, Matt, I'm bleeding. You got to cook again. And it feels inconvenient. And there's a part of me that's like, I don't want to be inconvenient. And like I can totally see how that's like come through my maternal line. My mother was like the most convenient woman out there. She would never nag. She would never ask you to do anything. She would make everything easy for everyone. And I'm just really tuning in recently about just like sometimes we have to advocate for our body and sometimes it's inconvenient. And like how rewarded we get for doing that. And just how rewarded I feel like my body is to me. And she responds so well when I do that. And so tuning more and more into that and letting go of that fear of being inconvenient or being naggy or being a
Yeah,
burden.
sorry. It's like I feel in my experience hearing you, it's like just honoring yourself, right? It's just honoring
Mhm.
your body, your truth, like your essence, right? It's not,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think for so long we didn't. And I didn't. Right. And,
yeah,
when we think of, our bodies as a temple, there's lots of ways that, we let the wrong people come to temple. We let them come to prey on us instead of pray for us. And I really feel like in all this work that I'm doing, I'm like rebuilding that trust with my body because of so many past wounds and so much past hurt. And it feels like lifelong work. And something that I'm tuning into is like, don't decide where it ends. It doesn't stop. And why I wanted to do this was just to explore, what does the temple mean for you? How do you show up? You know? And how can I deepen into my relationship with my body? Yeah. How you doing, Aisha? How's all this landing
Mhm.
for you?
I think I've been reflecting a lot on like the last time I had a somewhat proper bleed. I was in, I don't really know why I'm about to quantify the amount, just an abusive relationship. Um, and like towards the end, when things started to get like really bad, even though I was on birth control, my period just started one day mid pill pack
Mhm.
and didn't stop. And like I remember going to my family doctor and being like, ma'am, this birth control's not working. And she's like, you're pregnant? I'm like, no, I'm bleeding. Like, why would I be pregnant? My issue is that I'm bleeding. Like, this is so inconvenient. Like, um, and like I ended up like seeing a specialist, whatever, like nothing was wrong. And the craziest part is the bleeding would stop every time he left. And he would come back home and the bleeding would like literally start. I could just like feel
Uh-huh.
it come down in 5 minutes. And at no point did I ever like stop, connect with my body. Did any doctor even be like, hey, so what's happening in your life? Like, is it stressful? Like sleep, health, are you eating? Nothing. Um, and then I like lost so much weight that it just stopped altogether.
Mhm.
And then the relationship ended. And so a part of me was like, I think that at that time I was like, I should stop with the birth control altogether. And I think, like, obviously, I think my womb was trying to do me a favor, but at the same time,
Protecting you.
yes, but at the same time, I'm almost, I guess, scared to relinquish the control because of the trauma. So just kind of working through that because I think at this point, the mental state is honestly just like the barrier to I think what me and my body need.
Uh-huh. And it feels like maybe a trust thing, you
It is,
know? You trust her?
yeah.
Mm. Yeah. And were your bleeds like before you went on birth control, were they regular or were they quite
They were
irregular?
regular, but they were super, super long. Like I guess like my mom and my grandma and stuff, like had endo or adenomyosis.
Yeah.
So I think we mostly all have adenomyosis. So generally, like it's not as much of a fertility issue as long as you get pregnant really young. So also just
Mm-hmm.
grappling with that disappointment of no longer quantifying myself as really young. But like before I started birth control, there was like 14 days of bleeding, on like a 36-day cycle. Which like in the end, then the narcolepsy kicked in, and having that much downtime for my body just wasn't
Yeah.
manageable, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would
So
also encourage you, like, just because your mother and grandmother had these conditions doesn't mean you will have them, you know?
no, and I actually don't like at the time that they put me on birth control, my mom didn't even know she had it. Like this was a interestingly recent diagnosis, like kind of as she's entering menopause or
Mm-hmm.
perimenopause. So I mean, we'll see. Like at this point, really, whether or not my fertility is affected is not really affecting my life. So I'm not in a particular rush to go down a diagnostic route. I think really
Mm-hmm.
like the first step is just coming off the birth control and see what
Mm-hmm.
my body is trying to say.
Yeah, and there's lots of ways you can support yourself for coming off birth control. In the school, in one of the classrooms, there's a classroom called She is Nourished, and there's a
Mhm.
whole document I wrote on just how to nourish your body coming off birth control and the effect that birth control has on your liver and how to support your liver and all the excess estrogen and yeah, just bring your body back into balance. So I would really, really highly recommend just like tending to your body as you come off and doing it consciously.
Mhm.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to it. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to keep you ladies updated.
Yeah, definitely. There's it's funny, I've ran like quite a few of these circles and calls, and there's so many number of women that when they come into my orbit, they get off birth control. Because I'm always talking about it, and it almost feels like part of my life work is to like bring women's cycles back.
Free the ladies.
Breathe
Exactly.
my needs. So, I know you are already ready, but I'm super happy to be here to
No, but
support and
truly,
bear
like I
witness.
don't know if I would have like it would have definitely been a down the road, like, oh, once I get this under control and once this part of my life is squared away. And so sometimes it's nice to get that little nudge.
That little nudge. Yeah, shout out to my Diva Cup for that one, for that little nudge.
Exactly.
hmm Yeah, but I would highly recommend just looking into liver health, and looking into the effects of estrogen and how to bring more mineral, like hormonal birth control really affects essential nutrients and
Mhm.
depletes us of certain nutrients. Um, and so if that's something that you're thinking of doing, just how can you start supporting your metabolism? How can you start nourishing your body with certain foods and balancing your blood sugar and all those kinds of things? That's definitely something I would recommend you look into, and I can help you with that if that's something you want to do. Um,
Yeah, I'm definitely happy to connect on that.
yeah, there's a lot of different ways we can support the liver. One of the ways I like to is castor oil
Oh, I
packs.
love a castor pack. My mom's
Castor oil.
actually a homeopath. So I've seen a traditional Chinese medicine, like I've done traditional Chinese medicine and homeopathy naturopathic doctor since I was like a child.
Amazing. Okay, so you
Yeah.
you 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 know the ways. Amazing. But some people just don't have access to this information,
I
They don't
know, and it's
they go
so
off birth control and they don't understand and they have no idea and it's just like we sometimes we just need people to drop a little hint, and just spark something. So, yeah, that's something I'm super happy that you have that support system and that just understanding and perspective on life. And yeah, I mean, I know that there's probably a lot of inconvenience that comes with having your bleed back and a lot of pain and a lot of, not being able to function, but it's also your body responding, right? She's giving you those signals.
Mhm.
And it's part of our job to listen to those signals, right? Instead of mute them and put a band-aid on them and suppress them. Yeah.
Mm.
I'm sending you a lot of love as you move through that transition and definitely keep us posted. I would love to hear how your journey goes and reflections that you have along the way. And yeah, feel free to post in the community anytime. Mm.
Absolutely.
Reach out if you need any support. Yeah. Yeah. I had a girl that was in my container a few weeks ago and she struggled with PCOS her whole life. And she was just like, I finally have come back to balance in the first time in my life that I feel like everything is balanced.
That is so powerful.
It's so powerful just to like hear the stories of women coming back home to themselves.
Mhm.
It really does feel like a coming back home. Um, and a deep, deep listening. Okay. Thank you, ladies, for coming and bringing your wisdom and bringing your stories and bringing your unique experience to this container and, just being able to talk even just about like how we manage our blood for me feels just so potent as a woman to like share that with others and reduce those shames and just, you know, shame dies when stories are told in safe places. So I love creating safe places and just inquiring on these subjects and learning the rhythms of our body, learning the wisdom of our body. And I'm so grateful to have people to do it with. Thank you. Mhm.
Mm.
Okay. If you guys feel complete, I feel complete, and I look forward to just keep continue doing this. Like I really just want to show up and not decide where it ends and just see how deep I can go into womb wellness. And so I'm just gonna keep throwing topics out there. Now let's explore them together. There's never ending list of topics to explore in this experience. And keep showing up to the temple, keep tending to her, keep giving her our energy and reaping the benefits that come with it. Okay.
Thank you, and
You're so welcome. Thank you for being here.
yeah, it's precious.
Hmm.
I've been craving this space too, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's good to connect
Mm.
all around the globe. We're like little
Mhm.
stars being constellation for her.
Yes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I said last week, I mean, last week there was a completely different group of women. I said, there's no commitment here. right? It's like just show up when it feels good to show up. If there's a topic in particular that you want to talk about, if you can't make it one week, it's just like, I'm just going to hold this pulse. I'm just going to hold this flag of like conversations that I desire to bring into the world, and I'm going to hold the torch. And if you want to come into them, come into them.
Mm.
But don't feel like you have to be here or have to commit to anything. But I love to have your stories and experiences and reflections here with me. And then if there's anything that you want to explore, like I'm open. Like I have topics, but if you want to explore something, like let's dive into it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
so
you.
good.
Yeah,
So
it's so
good. Yeah. It's so
good.
I love you.
I love you too. Mm.
Bianca, I have a funny story.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna every time I make Spotify playlists, I make it like based on someone that I know. Right? It's like, I have a
Oh.
Spotify playlist for the Temple of Her because that's like an
Mm.
energy, right? And I have a
Mm.
Spotify playlist that has your energy, Bianca, and I call it like Sweet Mountain Mama. And I was listening to it a few weeks ago,
Mhm.
and I was listening to this song. I'm gonna
I'm so curious now. I would love to. Oh yeah, I can see your playlist on Spotify. Okay.
so I was
My
listening
favorite
to
song.
this song, and I'm like, you can hear it, yeah? I was listening to this song, and Matt comes downstairs, and I'm downstairs sitting, listening to it, singing it, and he goes, "This song always reminds me of Bianca."
Oh, I love that. That's so beautiful. Yes.
This song reminds me of you so much. It just carries your energy in such a deep
Yeah.
way.
We're just just like an homage to me. I feel nervous.
No,
That's awesome.
yeah,
Mhm.
that just happened a few days ago, and it just made me laugh, and I was thinking about it.
I feel wow, that's really beautiful. My heart feels so warm to hear that story.
I thought it was a good one. I feel like I had to share it.
It's a good one. Yeah.
Also, you asked a question about how to support yourself. Yeah, just when you're bleeding and like how to show up in the world when you're in your luteal and menstrual phases. And like, of course, first and foremost, we want to make our life revolve around our bodies and our cycles. And that's how we bring more balance into the world. But there's also lots of medicines that we can use. And something that I've been working with a lot is fennel.
Mm.
And so there's just fennel seeds in
Mhm.
this cup of water. And then I fill it up when I'm bleeding and when I'm pre-bleed, and it really supports the liver.
Mm.
So it helps free up energy from the liver and gets the blood moving in our body freely. And I often find with my bleeds, like the luteal phase goes on for a really long time, and then it takes a couple days. I'm like kind of spotting, and I just want it to come on with a little bit more intensity. And the fennel's really helping with just moving energy more freely in the body, and it makes PMS a little less intense. It's also in Ayurveda, it's a really cooling herb, so it reduces some
Yeah.
of that heat, that pitta energy, and it clears stagnation from the system. So there's lots of different medicinal, herbs and medicines we can work with. This is one that I'm currently working with and really loving it, but
Mhm.
lots of other things. And so just like having them around, having
Yeah.
them to support you during that time. If you have to show up, if you have to go to work, can you bring a tincture or a tea that's going to nourish your body while you're in that
Mm.
space? Can you do movement, the lymph practice that I showed you
Mm.
guys last session? That's really good for just moving stagnant energy. And at least like the hardest time of my cycle is like the day before I bleed. Feels like
Mm.
that feels like the hardest day for me.
Mhm.
And so just like bringing gentle movement, moving that lymph, moving that fluid, keeping that feminine fluid energy moving in our body, feels really supportive for me, even if I have to show up and do things and, you know, make myself presentable, I can still integrate those things. Just remember, nature has everything that we need.
Yeah, she's got our back.
She's got our back. We just need to learn how to
Mhm.
speak her language.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but fennel is one that I've been really working with. So find your medicines and find the medicines, like here. I used to use rose a lot when I was in Canada, but now in Costa Rica, I'm using hibiscus because that grows so readily here and it's so abundant. And so
Mhm.
like find also the herbs that are in your area, and different ways to support yourself. But also talk to John and just say, "Hey, John, I'm bleeding this week. Can I take it easy?" Right? Is that
Yeah.
possible? Can you even say that out loud? Like for me asking Nick, like even just saying that out loud felt like a huge step, right? Like
Mhm.
actually just trying to advocate for your body. It's fucking huge in and of itself.
It it is definitely. Yeah, John's pretty good now, especially because now he has a partner who is female, so she's like she understands. Um, but I had this very funny situation a few months ago where, like, I just kept saying like I really want to do the compost, like I really want to do it, I want to do it, I want to do it. Anyway, I there was someone else doing it, and I was like, oh, I really want to do it. And then, of course, the one day where they're like, Bianca, you're gonna do it today. It was like the first day of my bleed. I was like, you remember the compost room here? It's freaking intense.
Mhm.
And you're like just breaking up the soil trays all day and like jumping in the barrels and
Mhm.
I yeah, I had this moment where I was like, I don't think I can say I can't do it now because I just made such a big deal about it. So I did it. I was actually okay, but that was just
Uh-huh.
an interesting,
Uh-huh.
interesting situation. Yeah.
Gotta bite your tongue. Oh.
Yeah. Mhm.
But
Yeah.
then it reaffirms this old pattern of just like bite your tongue, grit your teeth, and do
I
it. And
know.
that's what I don't like. Like
Yeah, totally.
even when I have some energy on my bleed, I just really try and honor her because I don't want to push through it because I know that I can push through it. Because you can quiet those signals, right? You can push through it and just get it done.
Yeah.
But then,
Mhm.
the body starts to, stop speaking to you. And
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I went to ecstatic dance 2 days ago.
Mhm.
I was bleeding, but I went because I was really because we don't really get out so much here anymore. So we've had someone come to the farm who has a vehicle. That's been fun. But I'm like, yeah, um, but it feels so good to just like sit. I did that for like three three quarters to like
Is
half of
anyone
the
else's sound getting weird or is it Bianca's? Okay.
oh, it's is it? You
Yeah,
can't
your
hear me?
sound just was like going really weird and I couldn't tell if it was my computer or yours.
It just sounded
But
like an alien.
is that
I
better?
think I think you're
Yeah.
better now.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I did go to the ecstatic dance, but it just felt so good to just sit there for like half of the time. I was like, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
sit and watch, and that felt really good, and I still felt like excited to be there. So that was nice.
Cool.
Mhm.
That's nice because I've gone to an ecstatic dance on my bleed before and I got home and I got really, really sick. Like I
Mm,
just felt like I took on too many people's energies. It actually didn't feel like it felt partly my physical body from working too hard, but also just being so open when we're
mm,
bleeding. And ecstatic dance is like a lot of energy moving in the room and you're just so open and sensitive. And I got really, really sick when I came home.
mm.
Like couldn't even make myself dinner. I had to like go and take a shower and lay down. I think I went to bed at 7. Like I got home from the ecstatic dance and like I got just totally taken down. But I really like that idea of I can still go and like
Yeah.
be in this space and not participate. Because I feel
Mhm.
like I don't make that connection. I'm like, if I'm going, I'm going all in, or I'm staying home and not doing anything. But I like that approach of like, oh, I'm on my bleed. I'm just gonna go and observe.
Yeah, that felt really good.
Mm-hmm. No,
and
that's
just
fine.
letting go of ideas of like having to be anything, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It felt good.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Mm.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Mm.
I just noticed that the birds stopped chirping, which means it's definitely time for me to go to sleep. I'm like sitting here so sleepy, but I didn't even want to check the time because it's been such a lovely hour and a half with you guys. But I have to really go because I am going to fall asleep on this call.
Me too.
Yeah, go.
Sending you all so much love from Canada. Hopefully, I will see you all soon.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you, Aisha. Have a beautiful
Bye.
sleep.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Ah, I'm like,
Wait, don't look at this.
I want to go. I have to go to bed, but I don't want to go.
I know it's getting late for you, but thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing your voice
It's so
and your
nice.
medicine.
Yeah,
Mhm.
thank you so much for creating that space, Emily. Yeah, thank you.